My name is Ralph Wright, husband to Clara and dad to Brady and Dori.
Cross my heart and I hope to die.
These compositions are what we term classics, and which in no way will be considered classics by future generations. And the only four-letter word written in them is L-O-V-E, love.
I've told this story a number of times at theaters, but I really wrote the story because of my folks. They were married for 70 years, they were madly in love, and then they finally had their decline. When I was 12, I worried that my parents would end up in hell because I had gotten religion and they hadn't. And it wasn't just that Mama wasn't religious, she was superstitious. She avoided black cats and ladders, and she would never have sat 13 for dinner. And as far as the hereafter goes, what Mama really believed is that someone who died before you saved a place for you in heaven. Well, as I got older, I developed a little more universal spirituality, and I kind of dropped the hellfire and damnation part. But as she got older, Mama began to fret about who was saving her a place since Dad was still alive. I said, well, Mama, your twin brother Bud is saving you a place, isn't he? Oh, no, he would have had to save a place for your Aunt Ruth. Well, how about your brother George? He didn't have a wife. Well, he would have had to save a place for his best friend, Wiley Jared. Well, Mama, can't you save a place for more than one person? Oh, I guess I don't know all the details. Growing up, we heard plenty about death's details. By the time I was in high school, my brother and I both knew that our parents wanted to be cremated. Dad used to say he wanted his ashes sprinkled over the 14th hole of his favorite golf course because that's where he got his hole-in-one. And we really hope he wasn't kidding because we did that. Mama used to joke that she wanted her headstone to read, "I told you I was sick." And Dad told us very clearly about his do not resuscitate wishes long before that term was in effect. When he was about 79 or 80, he said, you know, Dori, if you come over here and you wave to your mother in the kitchen and come on through to the den to see how I am for the day, and I'm lying on the floor, unconscious, don't call 911. You don't know how long I've been lying there, and I certainly don't want to be a vegetable. You've heard that term many times. He said, here's what you do. You just step over me, sit down on the couch, turn on your favorite television program, and watch that for about 30 minutes until I'm good and dead. And then, if you want to call 911, go ahead, because they won't be able to resuscitate me. I said, Dad, I respect your wishes. I understand what you're talking about, and I will take care of that. But I'm not going to step over you and watch my favorite program and then, can I just go in and visit Mom and say, hi, Dad doesn't look so good in there, or something. So by the time Mama was 88, after the medical mistakes, the paralysis, and the first amputation, she had caregivers tend to her round the clock for the next 6 years. I was privileged to be one of them. Every night, we'd transfer her from her wheelchair into her hospital bed at home. We'd remove her prosthetic leg and change her into a fresh Depends. And then we'd put on her favorite threadbare nightgown. She'd say, no, don't get me a new one. This one's finally been washed enough to be soft. And then we'd take out her dentures and raise up the head of the bed and tell Dad, you can come in now. And he'd sidle up the hallway in his slippers, calling out, where's my bride? And he'd sit down on the edge of her bed and take her hand in both of his and lean in for a kiss. And she'd look up at him, no teeth, glasses big as window panes, in that faded, frayed nightgown with her hairdo all smashed against the pillow. And he'd say, "Sweetheart, you're just as beautiful as the day I married you." And then he'd break into song.
And here's one for my sweet wife, Clara. When your hair has turned to silver, I will love you just the same.
Which he did several times a day. He'd sing "Let Me Call You Sweetheart" side by side. 5'2", eyes of blue.
Gee, but it's great after being out late, walking my baby back home. Just kiss me once, then kiss me twice, then kiss me once again. It's been a long, long time.
Or his anthem, "You are my sunshine."
My only sunshine. You make me happy when skies are gray.
Honey, I love you so much, I couldn't live without you. Oh, well, you're just going to have to let me die first because I couldn't stand the pain of losing you. They were like a pair of swans, mated for life. By the time she was 94 and in the hospital for the third time that year, she looked up at me and said, "I don't want to be here. I just want to go home." We knew it wasn't time for healing. It was time for hospice. So I drove her home. And at 95, Dad was helpless to care for her, but he could still sing. So he sat down on the edge of her bed and he took her hand in both of his and crooned his love.
You'll never know, dear, how much I love you. Please don't take my sunshine away.
At 94, with unconditional love between her and her family, she was free to be unafraid of death. And she was ready. Like when someone passes you the butter, you take it. About 3 weeks later, I was chatting at her bedside, and she said, "There's a river running down the hallway outside my room. Do you see it? I'm going to have to cross it someday. Maybe you'll help me when it's time." "I will, Mama. Whether I could see the river or not, I will damn well make sure she got across it and anything else she needed." She wasn't on any medication that would cause hallucinations, and she didn't have that much dementia. She really saw a river. About a week later, I called her in the morning and said, "Hey, Mama, I'll be there in about 10 minutes. How are you today?" "Oh, I'm just trying to figure out what to do with these people lying on the bed." "Oh, are your caregivers chatting with you?" "Oh, I don't know who they are." "Are they old or young?" "Oh, they're no age." "Are they talking with you, Mama?" "Oh, no, they're lying on either side of me. They're talking with each other, making some kind of arrangements." "What are they wearing, Mama?" "Long blue robes." "Are they scaring you, Mama?" "Because they were scaring the hell out of me." "Oh, no." "Well, okay, Mama, I'll see you in about 10 minutes. And when I got there, I was really disappointed because the people were gone. And even though it was a little unsettling, I just wanted to be in the room when she saw the people. And since Mama wasn't afraid, why should I be? A couple of days later, "See how the river is running all through the room and under the bed? It's red. I just stay on the bed." This wasn't disconcerting to her. It was a simple fact. Like, I had cream of wheat for breakfast. Your Aunt Betty sent a card. Oh, and I'm crossing over a red river. Since she believed it, I did. And since I was sitting in a chair next to her bed, I was in the Red River. Mama didn't seem to think that was odd. It did occur to me, though, that that's probably where the phrase, "one foot in the grave," comes from, because Mama was still alive, but she was clearly stepping into another world. It turned out Mama would be saving a place for Dad. The next morning, at about 6:30, just as I was getting ready to go visit them, the caregiver called and said, "Dori, your mother has just passed away." I phoned my brother, and we each began driving towards Mom and Dad. I don't remember driving the 6 miles or stopping at any red lights. And when I got there, she was propped up in bed. And I kissed her cool cheek, and I stroked her little hand. She hadn't been in any pain for the last 3 weeks. She was just visiting, and apparently being visited, and getting tinier and tinier until she was just a wisp of gray hair, essence of Mama, a thin ray of Dad's sunshine, easy for the angels to carry across the river. That afternoon, the caregivers told us some stories. They said that the night before, on the eve of her death, they were sitting and chatting with my folks and helping them get ready for bed as usual, saying things like, "Oh, Ralph, can I help you with those pajamas?" Or, "Clara, let's brush your dentures." And then they realized that my folks weren't talking to each other or to the caregivers. They were responding to someone audible and visible only to them. What time should we be ready? How long will it take? What should we bring? And in the middle of the night, my mama called out. My 94-year-old mother called out for her mama. And the caregiver came in and said, "Clara, what can I get you?" "I'll need my blue robe Mama has on hers." And the next morning, they went in to get my folks ready for the day. And Mama said she didn't want to get dressed. And Dad said, "I'll need my hat and coat." I said, "Well, Ralph, we're just going into the breakfast table. You won't need your hat and coat. We're not going outside. I'll need my hat and coat. Clara and I are leaving this morning, and we need to be ready." So the caregiver put on his hat and coat, wheeled him into the breakfast table, got him some cereal, toast, and then she went back in to see if my mama was hungry, but she'd already gone. The caregivers said, "We've been in this business about 30 years and have been present at about 150 deaths. And many people have visions and they have spiritual experiences, but your mother has had more than almost anyone we've ever seen. And your father, who isn't dying and isn't in hospice, was clearly part of it." And then she winked and said, "Your folks have been consorting with angels." Dad never sang again. He didn't have anyone to sing to. And it took him just 30 days to starve himself until he could join her. Looking back, I realize I didn't have to be worried about my parents' everlasting souls when I was a kid. Their religion was their love for each other, and that ferried them through life. I got to watch as 2 pragmatic people stumbled into ravishing spirituality. No chanting, no crusading, no dogmatic arguments. Just contented peace. And that's what I want. And someone to hold my hand in both of his. But at least now I know someone's saving me a place.
You in the world, and I were the only boy, and I were the only boy.
you're 80 years old, your voice will crack a little bit too once in a while.